When Ghostie's parents move from Scareville to the human town of Smithville, he becomes the only ghost at school and summer camp. How can he fit in with human kids, make friends, and still be himself? Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Ahead, we'll explore the first two books in a new chapter book series and talk with the author about the inspiration behind them. Tara J. Hannon is a children's book author and illustrator. Her previous books include the Birtle series of graphic novels. She joins us to talk about The Only Ghost in School and The Only Ghost at Summer Camp. Tara, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us about the inspiration for this new series.
You know, the inspiration actually came from an illustration that I created many, many years ago. It was just a lonely ghost kind of drifting around an open room. And I was surprised at how much attention it got and how people were saying they really liked this character. And so from that illustration stemmed the desire to create a story for the character. Since the ghosts look lonely, we kind of created this The Only Ghost in School vibe. And it actually started out as a picture book. That's how I wrote it at first. And the picture book didn't get picked up. And so we kind of put it in a drawer. And after a year or two, my agent at the time was like, what about this Ghostie story as a chapter book? And so then I got to really stretch the story out and give it a lot of meat. And that was loads of fun. And that's how we got Ghostie as a chapter book.
So as a chapter book, what ages is it intended for?
I would say first grade through third or fourth. It's a great book for emerging readers. It's got sort of bigger text and a little bit more space in between the lines. So it's for someone, starting out that needs to practice tracking the lines and stuff like that. It also has a lot of colorful illustrations. So it's a nice bridge between, full blocks of text and picture books. So hopefully it keeps their attention and gives them stuff to look at, breaks up the words a little bit.
Well, we're going to talk about the first two books in the series. So let's talk about book number one, and that is The Only Ghost in School. What is the story that readers are going to find here?
This is a story about a ghost. His name is Ghostie. He lives in Scareville, or he has his whole life. And suddenly his parents have told him that they're moving to a human town named Smithville. And Ghostie is extremely hesitant. Ghostie knows that most humans are scared of ghosts, and he's very nervous for what that transition is going to be like. His parents, however, are very excited. They have a fascination with humans. They really love the culture, and they're just kind of just ready to be in the human world. And so he's feeling a big disconnect between their excitement and his sort of doom about the whole thing. So, as we all know, it is hard to be the new kid at school. So this is sort of bringing in that theme of just kind of starting out in a new place. And in this particular case, he is extremely different from the kids that he's going to be meeting. So just as you would suspect, the kids are scared of Ghostie. And so the biggest theme here is fitting in versus finding belonging. At first, Ghostie really tries to fit in. He tries to be just like the humans and kind of hide his ghosty traits. And that sort of creates a lot of awkward tension. He doesn't really know how to find his place. And then something happens and he starts figuring out that he can be himself and find friends by doing that. And he has a much more comfortable sense of belonging after he does that.
And in the second book, he's gone through a school year, and he's going to go to camp, but there are still issues there as well for a ghost trying to fit in with humans.
Yeah, Ghostie can get into some chaos for sure. So in the second book, Ghostie does make a friend in the first book. And so Ghostie and his friend Tate, in the second book, they go to summer camp together, and they're very excited about it. Everything's going fine because at this point, the humans are kind of familiar with Ghostie, until a well-meaning camp counselor tells a very scary ghost story at the campfire. And it's dark, and the camp counselor, Steve, he really gets into it. He's quite dramatic about it and makes it very scary. And so suddenly all of the kids in the camp, including Ghostie's best friend Tate, are now scared of Ghostie. So that creates some tension for Ghostie, and he decides that he just wants to leave. So he calls his parents. His parents come and pick him up, but that just so happens to overlap with Steve getting quite ill. And so Steve has to tap out for a minute, and Ghostie's parents tap in as the new camp counselor. So now there's 2 adult ghosts running a camp full of kids who are afraid of ghosts. So once again, we're in a scenario where Ghostie really has to come to an understanding and to trust that himself and that his parents are well-intended and can sort of bridge this gap and make everyone comfortable.
Well, there's so many themes here. As you talked about, there's themes which kids can identify with about, being the new kid at a school and finding a way to be accepted, but also not give up what makes them unique so they can be themselves as well. And I see other themes here too, especially in the second book, is that these stories about ghosts. And you can sort of extrapolate that to race and other things, that people have assumptions of what it means to be a ghost or what it means to be a person of a particular culture, and are insensitive about that. And then that makes it difficult for Ghostie in this case to explain to them that, no, ghosts aren't really that way. Mm-hmm. So again, a number of themes that you explore in this book.
Yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that. That was something that I wanted to pull into this story. Just the fact that, we do hear a lot of stories. They're not always true. They don't apply universally to every human that we meet or every ghost that we meet. And so it's nice to be able to include themes like that into this book, which is really lighthearted and quite chaotically goofy. Ghostie's parents are almost oblivious to this tension that Ghostie's feeling, and Ghostie's watching just as any child of a parent that they're slightly embarrassed by, just like with gritted teeth, like, oh my gosh, lots of cringe moments. But what Ghostie's parents show us is that if you're authentic and your intentions are good, you are going to shine through past any sort of stereotype or negative storyline that anybody has in their mind before meeting you. So it becomes a nice message, I hope.
And you have a lot of fun with this. Not only the illustrations, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but just the fun you're having with language, and lots of sort of puns and plays on words like ice cream and show and yell and many, many others that you bring into the story. That
was the most fun, I think. It was kind of like a puzzle. I wrote the story my goal when I write is to write very sort of freestyle and with very low pressure on making it something beautiful in my first draft. So that's where it was in the first draft. And then I was constantly refining. And then when I got to read through every moment and think, could this be sort of more related to Ghostie's world? Could this phrasing apply to something that would happen in Scareville, or like language that Ghostie would use? And so that was really fun for me. There's probably a million that I missed, but hopefully I'll have an opportunity to use them somewhere one day.
And you've already started developing sort of this vocabulary that you can carry forward with future books. The other thing, just kind of going back to themes, is that Scareville was much more diverse a community in many ways than Smithville. There is diversity in Smithville as well, but obviously not to the extent that Ghostie was used to in his previous city.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. There is a page that talks about how Scareville had vampires and werewolves and witches and wizards and zombies and the world of monsters is very vast, and you can really sort of showcase a lot of different things when you're talking about monsters. So it is interesting because when Ghostie goes to the human world, it really is just humans.
So let's talk a bit about your illustrations, because you pointed out this is not a picture book. It's a chapter book, but it is an illustrated book. So tell us about the role that, illustrations play in a chapter book.
The intention of illustrations in a chapter book really is to help children get excited about reading. It can be quite daunting to open up a book without pictures if you're used to reading picture books. And so this breaks up the blocks of text and gives children a chance to breathe. It gives them a way to link what they're reading with the picture. If they're having trouble on a word, they can reference the picture and say, oh, there's a zombie in that picture. That word is zombie. And so they really do interplay together to help the reader understand through context and also give them sort of a break and a breather in the big blocks of text.
How would you describe your illustration style?
Oh, my goodness. I would love to describe it as whimsical. I try really hard to make the art funny. There's one spread in the first book, The Only Ghost in School, where I illustrated a picture of a grocery store in Scareville. And I had made a joke somewhere on social media that spread took me 27 hours. The software that I use, it will tell you how long you've spent on an illustration. So it's wild to know that I clock that much time on that illustration. But the detail involved is really extensive. And so there's stuff like instead of deli meat, there's yelly meat, there's blueberries, there's, I think instead of seafood, I have like SEE food, and there's a lot of eyeballs. So the detail that I like to throw into the art is hopefully something that will give kids, they can find something new each time that they look through it and something to kind of smile at, or that's the hope.
Yeah, I like that. There was the broom closet, and also you like the Frankenstein characters looking at nuts and bolts and all sorts of fun stuff. I have a question for you about sort of the creative process here, because as you know, for many books, there's an author and a separate illustrator, and that are coordinated by, an editor or the publishing company, and sometimes they never even meet. But you're both. So do you feel like that gives you a creative advantage when it comes to putting together books?
I feel like it's both things. I do think that because of the way that I create, I'm a very visual person. So it definitely helps me that I can show what I'm saying in the story. A lot of the times I might be saying something in the text, but the art is different. And that's where the humor comes in. Because they kind of play together to land the joke. So I do think that does work in my favor. Also, I think it would be fun to work with someone who's got a different skill set that has a whole different brain that can think of different things. So yes, and yes, I think that it were like both things are very cool. But I was glad that I could write and illustrate this book because I did have the whole world sort of created in my head, and I was excited to get it out on the paper.
Well, congratulations on getting the first 2 books out there. Will we see more books in the series?
Who knows? I hope so. I do hope so, because I have lots of ideas and lots of different scenarios that Ghostie can get himself into. And I would love to really expand Scareville and show the readers kind of like everything that it can be. So fingers crossed.
The first two books in this new chapter book series are The Only Ghost in School and The Only Ghost at Summer Camp by Tara J. Hannon. Tara, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, Dan. Thank you.
If you'd like to purchase the Only Ghost books, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are two more books you might find interesting. Thank you for watching this edition of the Kids Bookshelf. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.